Hi there, welcome to the channel, welcome back if you're a return viewer. You're watching the Christchurch Review of Books and I'm Cory. And you find me today on a very hot day in mid-February 2025. It's about 28 degrees Celsius in this room. I'm melting slightly, but let's get on with the video. I'm doing this midweek for a change because this book I'm talking about, Picks and Shovel, has just come out onto the US market and it's getting a lot of talk, so I thought I'd drop my review of it. I've had a copy of it electronically since mid-January. Seemed to have came out earlier in the Commonwealth countries for some reason, so it gave me a chance to read it and be on the ball when anyone else is starting to read it now. So what's it all about? Well, this is Cory Doctorow's third Marty Hench adventure. Now, Marty Hench is a kind of mild-mannered, computer-savvy forensic accountant who basically busts scams and criminals along the way while being an all-out good guy. And the first book featuring Hench was a few years ago now, and that was Red Team Blues, which kind of told the story of Hench's last case when he was about 60-ish and he was thinking of retirement. And then a couple of years later, or a year or so later, came The Bezel, maybe last year actually, sorry, my memory's getting all hazy. The Bezel picked up action in the early 2000s, mid-early 2000s, about 2005, 2006, and it told the story of Hench busting a Ponzi scheme supplying junk food to a fairly remote island where the traffic was controlled in and out, and the bad guys who didn't take kindly to being busted basically arranged for one of Hench's friends to be incarcerated for a while, and this led to a wide-ranging exploration of all the inequalities and unfairness and downright sham happenings in the US private prison system, and Hench kind of took on that behemoth and won again. Now this book takes us right back to the 1980s, to the very origin of Marty Hench himself. We see his formation as the man we come to know in the earlier books. Now, interesting is each book of these goes back further in time, and I find the character is actually improving in each book. In the first book, the Red Team Blues, he seemed more like a cipher, kind of hand-waving of his skills and expertise, and he was a bit of a ladies' man, and that didn't kind of sit really well. And in The Bezel, he was more down-to-earth human, and we could see why people liked him, why his qualities were in demand. And the Picks and Shovels kind of tells us how he became the man he became. Now it's quite a wide-ranging story this time around, so I'll try and go through it step by step. I've actually got a handy note here on my phone because my memory is not all that great, and it's been a couple of weeks since I finished reading this book. So whatever. So we start out with Marty Hench, his origin story. He is a son of an engineer, and he's always expected to go into engineering, so he got a place in MIT, the famous technical institute, and he basically failed. He failed in his course because he fell in love with computing. Computers stole his heart, and all he wanted to do all day was tinker and program and mess around with computers, and he fell in with a group of people called the Newbury Street Irregulars. I'm not sure if this was a real group or not. It's just a bunch of computer nerds, geeks and freaks, whatever you want to call it, who hung out together and worked on computers and tried out all the new stuff that was coming along. And this was a time of explosive growth in the computer industry, the early 80s. Apple IIs were the big thing for home computers, and everyone else had their own favourite hardware. And he meets a friend at MIT called Art. Art becomes like his best friend and offsider for the rest of the novel, and we learn a few revelations about Art as time goes on. I'll lead back into that later. And so he decides that to help his career prospects and his future, that he'll go into accounting because he can play with computers and spreadsheets all day long, and spreadsheets is like his number one love with computers. He finds the infinite possibilities of spreadsheets fascinating. I guess someone has to. And basically he sets up a company with some of his friends called Process Engineering Models, where they think they can basically model a company's process in the form of a spreadsheet and basically help a company figure out how they could change things, add things, whatever. And this company, they bite off a bit more than they can chew, and this company basically goes bust, and the people, money men behind it, people they know, basically say that they won't let them to compete. They've got clauses in their contract, non-compete clauses, and this results in them going, Art and Hench, taking a road trip to California where non-compete clauses cannot be enforced apparently as a result of historical events in that state. So we find Hench and his pal Art end up basically in the end in San Francisco, not until after Hench has a number of encounters with women, which kind of start his formative process of his lifetime of dealing with the opposite sex. So there's several things going on in this book, and the kind of coming of age, coming of emotional maturity, coming of open-mindedness with Hench is kind of like a large section of this book. It's kind of an extra strand that wasn't in the previous two. Now, once in California, they try all sorts of things, and Art basically comes out as gay, and there's a large thread of the book about the gay community in California. We see a lot of stuff through their eyes, and this kind of leads into stuff that is to come in the book. And actually, the main baddie in the book turns out to be a company called Fidelity Computing. I'm sure Doctorow is basically created out of thin air, but it sounds like something that could have possibly existed at the time. Now, Fidelity Computing markets its computers to people of several religious faiths. Actually, the computers can switch between like Catholic or Jewish or whatever when you set them up, and they are distinctive purple boxes apparently with all the add-on peripherals of a similar colour. And these are marketed via churches, and they have a massive marketing team trying to get these computers installed in various organisations and churches, using all sorts of methods to get them sold. Now, these Fidelity Computing approaches Hench, Marty Hench, to look at their books because they've got a competitor which is kind of undermining their work. This competitor is Computing Freedom, or CF as it's referred to in the book. Now, it's a group of breakaway employees from Fidelity Computing who have taken up arms against Fidelity Computing, and as we'll see, they have a very good reason for this. Now, Hench demands some of the Fidelity Computing hardware so he can check their books, find a case for them to fight CF, and in the process he discovers the Fidelity Computing systems are really highly compromised, and basically they'll only work with their own hardware. So if you buy these computers, you are locked into basically buying these computers forevermore, and nothing else will work with them. And we get a few examples of this. The floppy disks which they use are intentionally damaged, and only the Fidelity Computing drives will read them. The printers have had like dot matrix printers which have had the sprockets changed so they're non-standard, so only Fidelity computer paper will feed through them, and so on and so on. Now, what Computing Freedom is doing is basically making adapters, making software adapters, so these people who have been locked into this thing can find freedom with their computers and use them for other things. And Hench starts working on this system, and he finds he has to reverse engineer a lot of the Fidelity Computing software so he can use it on the spreadsheet programs, etc., on Apple computers that he likes to use for his work. And this leads him and Art to basically create shareware applications for basically jailbreaking the software in the Fidelity computers. And they start on this job, and they are contacted by the Computing Freedom people. Now, the Computing Freedom organisation or company is basically run by 3 ex-Fidelity Computing women who go by the name of Sister Maria Eva, Rivka Goldman, and Liz Taylor. Of course, that last one's name is a bit of a joke in the book because, you know, the movie star with the same name, blah, blah, blah. You don't need me to explain. Now, these are 3 women of different faiths from different parts of the world who work together at Fidelity Computing and learn all their tricks and all the dirty dealings that are going behind the scenes. And Fidelity Computing is run by 3 priests or high up in church members collectively are called the Reverend Sirs, and it seems they're quite willing to use underhand methods to enforce their share of the market, as we might say. Now, the Computing Freedom women basically flip Marty Hench to go on their side, and he starts working with them, and they work on a basic scheme to bankrupt Fidelity Computing, and so they'll be the winners in the end. Now, this seems like a lot of fun and adventure for Marty, but it does turn very serious, because it turns out that Fidelity Computing is backed by some very serious people who use very serious methods to get their ways, and this leads to a lot of violence and damage and whatever. And there's quite a lot of explicit violence in this book compared to the last two. I know there was some in the Bezel and even Red Team Blues, but that was mainly off screen. In this case, we find the results of beatings, and Hench himself was attacked a couple of times, I think. And this was all leading into the talk about the gay community in California at that time. In San Francisco, there's a lot of liking of this violence to the gay bashing and this type of thing. And, this takes a central pillar in the story. And also, among this time, while Hench is trying to work for these three women and basically make them win their battle with Fidelity Computing, he meets a hacker chick called Pat, who's a punk rock fan. He goes to the Dead Kennedys concerts with her, and he becomes a fan. And she's basically a bit of wish fulfillment in the story, I think. Maybe Doctorow really wishes he met a woman like this, or maybe he did, I don't know. But, she serves the role as a love interest for Hench and most of the story, and basically they fall in and out, and she saves his ass and he saves her, and all this type of thing. Now, this plan, things get serious, and they basically go on a hell or nothing plan to basically bankrupt Fidelity Computing, see which company can go bankrupt first. Can they force Fidelity Computing into failure by offering discounts and all sorts of things on their stuff? I won't tell you how it works out. It works out probably a little differently than you would expect. And anyway, it is a lot of fun. It's enjoyable. I think I said in my review of the Bezel and possibly Red Team Blues, Doctorow uses the kind of ultra descriptive angular text that you'd find in like 80s and 90s cyberpunk novels, where technology and hardware and whatever is described in detail, and the prose like that. He uses this in a near contemporary setting, well, 1980s. I guess that seems contemporary to me, but 40 years ago. It's not science fiction. It is more akin to a techno thriller or something like that. I enjoyed it a lot. There's a lot to take in. There's, like I said, there's several main threads going through this. There's the computing history. This is kind of capture in a bottle, kind of a time and a place, a feeling that was going on in the early years of the microcomputer revolution. His girlfriend Pat has a couple of expensive workstations where she lives, and then we get an explanation on them. We get an explanation on various things of technology that was going on at the time, and all sorts of things like phone exchanges and what have you. It is kind of more shocking than the last two books. There's more violence, the stakes seem to be higher. Along the way, like I said, we learn the foundation of Marty Hench, why he became the man he eventually becomes, although I kind of like this earlier version of him a bit better than the later one. That's just me, perhaps. Now, anyway, I say read this book. If you're into computing history, thrillers, capers, schemes, whatever if all those things interest you, read this book, but probably read Red Team Blues and the Bezel as well. They all work together. We'll slowly get back in time. I don't know where Doctorow's going to come next with the Hench story. Maybe we're going to get a story set in the 90s or maybe later in the 2000s or 2010s. I don't know what his plans is. I know he's writing these things like a stream of consciousness, one after the other. So, so what can I say is get picks and shovels, get Red Team Blues, get the Bezel. All a lot of fun, enjoyment. You'll learn a few things. You'll maybe learn what it takes to become a more quality individual as Marty learns it. That's pretty much all from me. I'm melting in this room, so that's Cory Doctorow's Picks and Shovel. I've been Kerry. I'll see you next time.